Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of The Outer Realm. Glad you can all make it. It's going to be a great show. We are broadcasting live here on the International Public Radio and United Public Radio Network 105.3 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing folks over at Folgers Coffee. Thank you, Folgers. And Dr. Snick, aka Justin Snicker, for the contribution of his voice and music for our intro and outro. Tonight, we welcome back to the show our friend and guest, Elliott Van Dusen. He's going to be discussing his new book, More Supernatural Encounters from Law Enforcement. He's a whole lot of fun. We just love having Elliott on. And he's going to be coming on, I think, a few minutes late just because he's doing another show. Popular guy. Yes, he is. I know. So, of course, tonight, if you're looking to participate in tonight's show, we are streaming on YouTube, UFO Paranormal Radio, and International Public Radio. We are on Twitch, UFO Paranormal Radio. We are on Facebook under Canada's Most Haunted, The Outer Realm with myself and Amelia. We are on Joe Montaldo, UFO Undercover, and UFO Paranormal Radio, and News on the Flip Side. So those are everywhere that you're going to find us this evening. I see the chat is already starting up. Hello, Wayne. Yes, tomorrow is going to be our 200th show. Woohoo! We're quite excited about that.
Hello,
right?
Everybody. Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Yeah. Good. It takes to do 200 shows. That's two shows a week.
A lot of work.
I haven't been there for all 200. Michelle has. But
it's been a long haul, but it's been a fun journey. So Hi, Jeannie. Hi, Tamara. Hi, Axel from Nicaragua. Thank you for joining us. Wow. Love it. So, yeah, I know. Isn't this awesome? This is just going to be a whole lot of fun. I love it. Oh, 200 shows. Yeah. Yes. It's been such a journey. This, of course, we'll talk about more tomorrow, but it's really been one heck of a ride, hasn't it?
I feel like we've always been together. So I know.
Centuries.
Well, we literally speak to each other every single day, whether it's work or not. But for me, it feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
And I look back and I'm like, wow, this has come a long way. This is really what it started out to be, and where it is at now is just amazing. And that's, of course, due to Michelle. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow. But it's really hard to believe.
It takes
200 sounds. Well,
all of our listeners.
2.5 at one point.
It takes all our listeners, all of our amazing guests. It takes a great network, takes a great producer, takes you and I, of course, it's important, for the interaction with everybody in chat. I think it's really important. And with guests, it's a bit harder. So tomorrow night, it'll be, all about you guys and us having some parlay time, which is always nice.
Yes.
But I'm looking, oh, hey, Michael. I'm looking forward to seeing, or seeing Elliott and, what he's got going on. He's really super busy all the time. And everybody loves paranormal stories. I find oh boy, here we are we're getting it again. We're being solicited again.
Lots.
We got to block. Why can't I block this? Solicitation block user. Everybody's getting blocked, man. That's it, right? That's it.
That's crazy. But
I know. Out there you go. What do you have? 8 listeners? Whatever.
That's Joe.
Joe.
I'm just going to yell hi to everyone because Michelle said hi to everybody. But
I
yeah,
did.
200 shows.
I know.
Ooh.
And look,
And
we're even being like, we're even being spammed by I don't want to just encourage it, but online strips without clothing.
oh, is that Joe's?
That's on
Is that
Facebook.
Joe's account?
No, that's.
Are you sure it's not Joe sending that?
No, because they're blocked. Just keeps going.
No, I'm just a little concerned. It might be Joe.
No,
On those pictures. In those pictures.
I know it. It's just between that and the bots. It's just like one heck of a fun time. I find we've got so many of our friends who are writing books right now, and trying to make some space so we can get everybody back on. I know Richard Eastep's got another book. Dan Hammond, who's been on the show, has another book. We are booking like well into the end of April into May right now, and sporadic dates throughout the whole rest of the year. So, people don't mind waiting. We don't mind booking, but it's nice to see. I've had some people message me, "When are you going to write a book?" Well, I don't have time to write a book. So I'm going to leave it right there.
Barbara Walters waited till she was almost 80. And she said, I haven't finished living yet, so why would I write it? And
it's a lot. And
no, Wayne, you did not write anything bad. Your books are all amazing. You got give Wayne a give him a plug. That's crazy. His books are so amazing, you can't put them down. And there's nothing out there like what he has written. No. Tell everybody about Wayne's books and how they can get them.
Wayne's been on the show before, and he's got a series of books called The Vampire Tales, and it's all historical fiction about vampires, of course. And I have to say, I'm a little prejudiced because I like the prequel, which is book 4, which is my complete favorite, and because I like Templars, I like medieval times, I like and it was all places that I'd already been to.
Yeah, it was hard to put down.
I know. So, so it was a lot of fun because as he was writing, I sort of got a lot of the inside scoop, and I was able to say, well, this is what this place looks like, or this is what this place looks like, and this is what you should, consider, and blah, 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 blah. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah. But
it's a great book, and it's
not my thing.
It's historically correct.
It is. Oh, it is, because he's like very, very thorough. Okay, I'm going to send this to
And for those of you who didn't see that show, you can find it in archive, but
audio only, I believe.
Yeah. What you don't know is that Wayne actually sat outside in the middle of winter in Niagara Falls, which is freaking freezing is all I'm going to say. And he actually experienced the cold, so he was able to write, because when you read his book, now I've read the 4th one first because I was told to read that one first.
Well, the first one was being
my God, is it ever amazing? And when you just write off from the first paragraph, Wayne just sucks you right in, and he that's perfect timing. He sucks you right into the story, and it has everything in it, and you can feel everything that he is seeing, and you experience it with every word.
Right.
So well written. He just lays it out for you right in front of you. The whole magic, the whole fantasy, the history, everything is just right there. You're breathing it, smelling it, living it. And it's a great,
and as Amelia's talking about it, we're actually being spammed by like a XXX something or other.
Yeah. And there is a little bit of XXX in there. Not too
smut bomb. That's right,
yes,
Wayne. You were smut bombed.
Yeah.
Right,
there's no smut in the book.
Oh my
There's
word!
No smut. The book is
no
really
smut. No,
really good.
But YouTube was just smut bombed right in the process of talking about this.
And
so I've noticed our guest has joined us. Do you want to go with the?
Yes. Our guest tonight. I read his book today that he sent us. Yes. Our guest tonight has a degree in criminology. Forgive me because I'm reading it off of here. I don't have my whiteboard. Has a degree in criminology, completed 15 years of service with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Thank you again for your service, sir. the director of paranormal phenomena research and investigation. He has earned a diploma and a doctorate in parapsychology, and he is the author of the 2 books, Evil in Exeter and Supernatural Encounters, True Paranormal Accounts from Law Enforcement. That's this one right here. Please welcome Elliott Van Dusen to our show. Hello. How are you?
Hello.
I wasn't sure if I'm supposed to call you doctor or not. Last time you said, "Oh, I'm dropping it," and I'm like, "But I had to make sure everybody knows that you have a doctorate because that's important."
Elliott's fine.
That's a degree. I still love that picture behind you.
Elliott's fine. Yes, and now I've got my 2 of my 3 book covers behind me now too.
Nice. So. Yeah, and I've got it right here. I read it today.
Good.
I actually read it today. I started reading yesterday. This is the second
third.
Book. Third. I'm missing one of your books in your bio.
That is the so my first book was Evil in Exeter, which was about the haunted house in Exeter, and then I wrote Supernatural Encounters, and then I wrote more Supernatural Encounters.
Okay, it was missing from the bio. Okay, I'll put that in there. Supernatural.
I got it on this.
So great. Yeah.
So, and I'm going to actually go in and put the banner up. Bum, bum, bum. Dun, dun, dun. See, there we go.
How's the weather? I have to ask how's the weather.
It's been all right. Yeah,
ask Michelle how much snow she got.
I've seen it on the news.
She sent me pictures. You can't even see her house. I'm like,
there's a
I'm
snow
only
drift that went over the car. It's like,
and I'm only 45 minutes away, and you can't see her house or her vehicles.
It's terrible. Anyway, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Yes. And what have you been up to? Aside from writing amazing books.
What have I been up to besides writing? Still running paranormal phenomena research investigation.
Right.
We have a few different investigations on the go right now.
Ooh.
Which is nice because during COVID it was fairly quiet, but right now we've got 4 on the go. I think right now we've got 1 in New England and then 3 here in Nova Scotia.
Wow.
We're close to getting that database. I think I've talked about it before.
Yes.
Online, my business partner that does web development there, Spencer, he is just in the process of getting the Google Maps integrated to what we need it to do, so that we will be able to post any investigations that we've done, any UFO sightings that we think is interesting. We can add it to there, and then the general public can go to our website, and if they've had an experience, they can upload their experience. We'll have an investigator review it for data integrity purposes, and then basically eventually you'll be able to click your home province, like you can click Ontario or Nova Scotia or New York State, and you'll be able to see kind of what's haunted and things like that. So it'll be kind of cool. It'll be a mix of everything. It'll have UFOs, because there are UFO databases out there that I've seen, but this will
not a lot for Canada though.
No, not a lot for Canada. You're right. It's mostly US, but this will be all paranormal. So it'll be UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, vampires, everything. So
vampires, no less. Wow, yes. I like it.
That's what I really loved about this is how many Canadian stories.
There was a lot.
It's nice to see, because a lot of people think Canada's not haunted.
I know. We don't have any
hauntings
border.
In They're like, do you have any hauntings? I'm like, oh my gosh, do we ever?
Oh yeah, it's very haunted.
Oh my gosh, it is. It is. This place used to be ridiculous until we cleared it.
I know. I heard Brian Baker always tells me about how haunted it was.
It used to be really. Oh my God! I remember Dan Hammond came over one time. He goes, you want to do a show? We can do it from here, from your place. I said, yeah, sure. Just pop by, and he's just like, like, I know, that's okay. Don't worry about that.
That's really cool. He just put out a new book.
He did. We were just saying that when we started the show.
And I just got it this week. It came from Amazon, so I'll have to read it.
I know. Have to get him back on to talk about that. We're booking officially, like almost like end of April and beginning of May. So I'm just trying to not go too far in advance, because then you go to do the show to like, I forgot about that. What? Do you mean? What did you just say to me?
Yeah, there's some guests you have to send them an email like a few weeks beforehand because they travel so much. But I mean, with everything that's been going on the last couple of years, we haven't had that issue because no one's going anywhere. So,
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
very
so
true.
it's a little weird when they forget. I'm like, what? You're home. What do you mean you forgot?
Yeah. This is a highlight of your life right now,
that
isn't it?
6 months ago.
Yeah,
but hello.
No, I'm not offended. It's all right.
Not at all.
I'll keep our few million listeners to ourselves. Don't you worry about it. So what are you allowed to talk about anything you're working on, or is it all paranormal? Is it cryptid?
No, so like our newest case that just came in, we're going to be investigating it not this weekend but next weekend.
Oh, awesome.
It was the case came in through a friend actually. I had met this lady once at like a kind of a party, but I guess she was over at Sarah's friend's house and was telling her about this building that she had bought. So it was built in the 1800s. She had bought it back in 2018, I think.
Wow.
And she's a travel agent, so of course things are not doing so well in the travel business.
Right.
So she converted her travel office over to an Airbnb, and but so she bought it in 2018, and shortly after they bought it, her and her husband were setting up her travel office, and she noticed that there was like muddy footprints that would just appear kind of in the middle of the living room and walk towards the window, the big picture window in the living room that was looking outside. So at first she didn't think anything of it. She thought maybe it was her or her husband because the basement's unfinished, so it's really dirty. So if you go down there, you're gonna track dirt up. And they were also up storing stuff in the attic. So first she didn't think anything of it, but then once her office was set up, she would come in and open her business for the day, and these muddy footprints would be there, and so she'd have to clean them up. So she eventually moved a couch in front of the window and like a table with her travel brochures on it. And then another time she came in and all her travel brochures were turned upside down. So she thought, maybe her kids had done it. But she was working on her computer one day and saw something out of the corner of her eye. And when she looked up, she saw what she described as like a shadowy type apparition that was wearing period or century clothing, walking down her hallway. And then just recently, after an Airbnb guest had checked out, she went into her place and cleaned it up, realized that she needed some more, not toilet paper, paper towel. And she said, okay, so I'll go to the store and get it. So she went to the store, bought some. 2 days later, came back before her next guests were coming, and the muddy footprints were back. But this time, instead of it being in the front window, it was in the back kitchen area towards the back door. So she was telling Sarah's friend about this, and she said, oh, you should contact Elliott, and he runs like a group that investigates and things like that. So spoke to her, and she blocked off next weekend for me and another investigator to go down. So we're going to take down all the gear and see what we can figure out.
Well, that's interesting when you say shadow people, dressed in period clothing, because a lot of times you just see them. Here where they've been here, they're kind of wispy. We even had a white shadow one time, which was strange. But what's your take on shadow beings? Some people think they're extraterrestrial. Some people think they're time travelers. Some think they're nothing but evil. Other people think they're people.
Well, this one is really interesting because, like you said, normally when somebody reports something out of the corner of their eye or a shadow, it's just like a black figure. But she was able to tell that this was a female, and that they were wearing like older style, kind of century attires, basically how it was explained to us. So that's kind of unique. I've never had that, black figure with that kind of description before.
Yeah. How do you even get a description when you're just sort of all black?
And usually black is not necessarily a good thing. I mean, normally it's associated to things that are not. We're all wearing black right now.
My head is black. I'm just like
what?
I know, but I know it's true. We're all wearing black, but I mean, normally in the paranormal, black figures are not generally a good thing. So
it's true. Yeah, that's why I had to ask.
But she didn't feel like any negative energy there. She has felt cold spots. Her daughter's felt cold and hot spots there. and they have a tenant that lives upstairs in the house. It's kind of blocked off from the Airbnb or the office, but the tenant has never made any complaints or anything like that to her that anything unusual has happened. And it would be kind of hard, even if she, like, say, heard furniture moving or things like that, because it's an Airbnb. People are coming and going from there all the time. So the lady upstairs may have even heard something, but might not be able to link it to anything. We will talk to the homeowner and see if we can just interview her just to find out. But if she doesn't want us to spook her, then we won't. Obviously, we take the confidentiality part of things really really serious. So well, that important way people trust you too, right? And
I've never posted anything like that unless it was a public place that wanted to be promoted, just because of the type of hauntings that I worked in. I mean, when you're dealing with malevolent things, as you know, it's really personal. People get really traumatized and they don't necessarily always want all those details out there.
No, they don't even tell their families, a lot of them. That's a difficult thing.
Definitely, yeah,
it can be. So primarily, what do you guys, what have you been coming across? Has it just been pretty malevolent stuff? Is it pretty, because I know it's hard in parapsychology, it's like that whole science mind thing.
We've had we've had I wouldn't call it a trend because we only had like 2 cases, but I know last year we had 2 cases of people complaining that there was something keeping them awake. One was a lady from Ontario that claimed she had been sexually assaulted by a ghost several years ago. But now the entity was like keeping her awake at night. She was having very like a lot of difficulty even functioning at her job. And so she reached out to us and we had to improvise because Ontario's outside our area. We do Atlantic Canada. We do the New England states because we have a team down there and a team here. But because it was COVID, it was slow and she seemed desperate for help. We decided to help her. So we had to think outside the box here. And so what we did is we ended up with PPRI, I have a subscription to Zoom. So what we would do is every night we would send a Zoom link to her and she had an iPad and she would set the iPad up and we would record her.
Great idea.
Sleeping. I was just going to say, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And then she must have felt better knowing that you were watching.
Well,
right?
that's the thing. So for 3 nights we filmed her and there was nothing. You could tell she was like kind of tossing and turning in bed, but she didn't report anything. She said normally there's a sensation of somebody like sitting on the bed or whatever. But those 3 nights she had nothing. So we kind of went back to the drawing board and I talked to my business partner there, Spencer, and he said, well, let's do 3 more nights. She's claiming this happens quite frequently. So what's the chances that nothing happens 6 nights out of 30 days? So we did another 3 days and again, nothing. And the problem just kind of resolved on its own. It's almost like you guys said, like the feeling that she knows somebody's watching her and kind of like protection kind of feel.
Mindset.
She hasn't had anything else happen. There was one point. So when we did the 3 nights, there was a bit of a break and she reported for like a week. Everything was fine, but then things started to happen again. So then that's when we did the other 3 nights. But since then, what is it now? Mid-January. So this was beginning of November. I touched base with her and said like, I'll keep your file open until end of November. I'll touch base with you in 30 days. And I touched base with her in 30 days and everything's been fine. And then she said, if something happens again, can I contact you guys? I said, absolutely. And I haven't heard from her since. So it's almost like that situation kind of resolved itself.
So like it's a mindset thing. Do you think maybe she was throwing energy?
Could have been, or it could have been the anxiety. Like if she was attacked in her sleep from before, you would have great anxiety going to sleep.
Which brings us to this question here. Amelia, do you want to take
Yes, Chris asked, do you think the heightened stress people are under is causing more paranormal issues?
Just for those who aren't watching and are just listening.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that it can for sure. Yeah. No, I mean, stress has been linked to RSPK or recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis in poltergeist cases. So I definitely think that, this that could have been something that was happening. I mean, we didn't, I had to watch the video, the mundane video of her sleeping for 6-7 hours, but
Yeah.
there was nothing unusual in the video or anything like that. Even one night she said, I think maybe the iPad might have moved a
Mhm.
little bit, like from her recollection, but when I watched
It did
the
not.
video, nothing happened. So
Oh,
and then yeah, she's been fine ever since. So that's great.
yeah. Yeah, it's difficult times, I think, when you have people who are not just stressed, but, anxiety, depression. I mean, let's face it, people are being cooped up. People are, I think, at the end of their rope, or they're scared, or there's all kinds of things, mixed emotions going on right now all over the world. I mean, the amount of people who contact us is just mind blowing. So it's, not always like that. So the last
No,
2 years have been really, really funny. So it is really difficult, because it's not easy to say to somebody you're projecting energy. It is psychokinesis. You have to try to be delicate. I'll usually send a link and say, do you see anything in here that's a little familiar, maybe? It's
yeah.
delicate. It's easier for them to accept that there's something malevolent going on in their house than it is for them to think that they're powerful enough to project that kind of energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've had cases like that where you've suggested the RSPK theory, and it
Yeah.
doesn't go over well. But I actually did suggest that to her, and I actually sent her some information on a case that Lloyd Auerbach had investigated. It was called the Choking Ghost case, but it was
Right.
basically a lady, former police officer, retired. She had been sexually abused growing up
Mm.
by her dad, and
Oh,
she was undergoing some trauma therapy at the time. And she was she was divorced in a 1-bedroom apartment, living with her mother. Her son came to visit her, teenage son, and there was no space for him to sleep, so they shared a bed together, and that kind of brought on like this unresolved trauma that she was dealing with, which started causing some poltergeist activity. She was at a work party, and some people actually saw
mm,
fingerprint impressions start on her neck, and she was being choked.
wow.
And Lloyd Auerbach, the parapsychologist that investigated it, had witnessed that as well when they were interviewing her. So,
Mm.
certainly high levels of stress like that can cause some unusual phenomena as well. We talked about. I just talked about this actually this week because I'm taking a course by Karen O'Keefe over in the UK,
Right.
taking his
Yes.
poltergeist case, because in
Mhm.
the UK they have a bit of a different um, belief on poltergeists over there compared to us. So
Right.
over here in North America, a lot of parapsychologists believe it's RSPK, or that there's a living agent or person causing that activity to happen. Whereas in
Mhm.
the UK, it's a mix. Some people subscribe to RSPK, but other people think that it's a discarnate entity or a ghost that's doing it.
Mm.
And so I talked to him. I said, I wonder what kind of stress somebody would have to be under to have it manifest like that, like a poltergeist. Because I said, for example, I said, my fiance is a human resource person right now, dealing with, she does works for the school board. And so the teachers are really stressed out right now because it's going from classroom and online learning back to classroom.
Wow. Yes.
And so, it's causing a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. So she's on the disability management kind of team. And I said she's really stressed out right now, and I said 2 days out of the week she works at home. So I let her use my office, which has haunted objects in it. And I said she's extremely stressed out. And I said nothing's going on here. So it just kind of, as a parapsychologist, it kind of blows your mind to think about what kind of stress someone has to be under for it to
Oh,
manifest in that way.
Hmm.
absolutely. Absolutely. We're just before we get too behind, we're going to put up some comments and some questions for you.
Yeah,
Amelia,
there's
you
a
ready?
few. Yes, I
Okay,
am.
go ahead.
Thank you.
Part one of
Um,
Hi, Chris, Bob.
that one we
I
just
do
read.
think
Oh,
that,
no, no,
yeah.
no. This is the second one. My bad. Sorry. Very good.
It's okay.
There it is.
His second part to the question: do you feel spirits are more attracted to certain people?
And then he
Uh,
says, if so, or if yes, why,
If
is what
yes,
he
why?
adds to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that, and I only think that because I have some personal experience with that. But in the case from Exeter, the girl that was involved there reported that ever since she was a little girl, she had spirits around her, and everywhere she'd go, there'd be haunting activity happening.
Yeah.
And what she learned later on throughout life is that she was very intuitive when I knew her, but they almost thought that she was she probably could have been a medium if she was able to hone in her skills. And what she was told is that the reason why all these spirits keep coming to her and her homes are haunted and things are happening is the spirits are trying to get attention to her because they pick up her energy and they think that she is one of those people that can help or that they can communicate with.
Yeah,
and that's why she always had haunting activity around her everywhere she went.
Right.
So I do think that the answer to that question is yes.
And he agrees.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, next, you ready? Yeah.
Sherry. Hi,
Go.
Sherry Berry.
Attacks can come from associated people with attachments, and those people
Elliott.
are in denial. Staying calm, ignoring, and not engaging is important. Yep, no, that's true.
Okay.
I find a lot of people in, especially like more when you're looking at the dynamic side of things. I find a lot of people try and fixate on what's going on, and that's one of the things that we try and tell them is, you can't be thinking about it all the time. You have to, because if you're thinking negatively and attracting negative energy, you're going to bring negative energy.
Well, it's a lot of attraction.
Understand that because we do that, but I also understand how they feel because they're so scared. So it's constantly playing in your mind, and it doesn't fail how many times you say them, please don't communicate, don't
acknowledgement
don't record,
is empowerment.
don't acknowledge it. Yeah. And you'll hear and then they'll say to you, I told it to go away, and I'm like, oh, no. So you try to explain that you can't acknowledge it at all. Just go about but it's hard. I get it. It's scary. I've been there, so I know.
Yeah, and then it's determining like what you're really dealing with. There is, I'm sure you'll agree, Elliott, there's a really fine line between what Christians have us embedded into us from the time that many of us have been children, angels, demons, all that stuff. Was realistically, are we really actually dealing with extraterrestrials? Because Lord only knows, we've seen all kinds of them, and it's easy to misinterpret. It really is. So
look who's awake.
Hamilton, what are you doing awake? It's 5 freaking a.m.
out in England. Hi, Hamilton. I'm on the zombie shift tonight. Just wondered if you could recommend any particular brand of coffee product.
Yes, Hamilton. We've been over this several times. It's Folgers. You know this. You've been on the show a million times. Folgers. Sound it out. You have a cup coming your way. Just saying.
Oh my gosh.
If you keep that up, it's going to come flying at you.
That's awesome. Sarah and I still drink. I told you last time I was on the show, we drink. That's what we drink is Folgers, and we have it every morning.
There we go. See, Folgers. There we go.
If you want a really, really amazing dessert to do with their instant roast, you can mix it with really, really cold water and sugar, and you beat it, and it comes out like a cream. So it's like a coffee dessert. Yes.
Oh, see,
you have to use the instant one.
More Folgers fun.
Yeah.
All right, here's one. Oh, hey, Dawn. Thank you for tuning in. Hamilton, I'll be back to you in a minute. So this is going back to talking about where you had the Zoom and you were checking in on her. I think that's what Dawn is making reference to.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense for sure. Because if we believe that's a discarnate entity, then they have some sort of intelligence to them. And when they want to be known, they'll make themselves known, and when they don't want to be known, they'll go into hiding. Certainly the house in Exeter that I was in, it was extremely haunted. There was a lot of activity that would always happen, but there were periods where it would go through a lull. It would there'd be like 2 weeks and there wouldn't be anything. And I don't know if that's because they need to kind of recharge their spiritual batteries, for lack of better words, or if they had their fun and they're laying low for a while. There's still lots of things that we don't understand about human consciousness once it moves on from our clinical bodies here.
Well, if they don't want you there too, I find they'll go really quiet, thinking, well, if we don't do anything, maybe they'll just leave and not come back. Yeah,
or in my book, Amelia probably read the story there today, but there was the police officer that kept getting the calls from the abandoned house.
Yes.
And when he would walk up to the house, you would get that feeling like you didn't belong there. And he ended up meeting a psychic or a medium on Reddit that was very accurate. She he never told her where the location was. But she knew there was a corner store nearby, and she knew like the layout of the house and like things like that really impressed the police officer. And she was able to gain that basically there was a spirit there that didn't want anyone to come there, so he would give
Mhm.
that feeling that you weren't welcome there. But then there was another entity in the basement apparently that was making these 911 static phone calls, and he thought it was kind of funny. He was kind of like a prankster or a jokester. So,
And
yeah, it's
maybe tell the audience, because they'll probably saying static phone calls, and I'm so glad you addressed this in the
I've got to
book,
have them. Yeah.
that you have to respond as law enforcement.
yeah. So, and I just discussed this actually earlier this evening. So in Canada, when there's a 911 call, the police have what's called common law authority to go in and search the house without a warrant, and that's because there's been cases where people have made it to the phone, called 911, and then they die, or 911 calls have been made from the home, and there's somebody being held captive, and the police, weren't able to get in there. So anytime there's a 911 call, the police have the authority to go in and search to make sure everybody's safe and sound. And sometimes, though, during bad weather and things like that, you can get what we call static 911 calls. So that's when a 911 call comes into a dispatcher, and all they can hear on the other end of the phone is like crackling or static. And that's what was happening in this one house that this police officer was telling me about. They would constantly get these 911 static calls, but there was no phone. Actually, there was a phone in the house. He sent a picture of it. I think it's in the book, but it was like in a pile of junk, disconnected, sitting on the floor. So there was a phone in the house, but it had no power to it, no phone line to it. Yeah, it's really creepy.
Very much for sending this book.
Yeah,
you are so
thank you.
kind. I really enjoyed it, and I don't want to give away all the stories because I think people need to
get the book.
Get the book.
You need to list. You need to read them in the dark. That's what I hear. Everyone.
Oh, what I love about it is you can go back to it because there's so many cases. But the one that I loved, that I found like the shivery one down my spine, was the funeral home.
Yes.
Funeral homes are always fun.
I know, but this one. This story is unbelievable. I'm reading it going, what? There's not even a phone.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, but a call was made from there. I know, it's just crazy. No, I saw Chris's
beside the body.
Yes. Yeah, right next to where the phone jack was.
Beside the corpse.
And most phone calls from the dead happen fairly recently as well, right? So if a body's being prepared for a funeral, it's usually been anywhere from 24 to 72 hours later, because they have to embalm the body and things like that. So it's really interesting.
I've had them as much as 2 weeks after. I've had some that just called me for a straight year. Was growling or hissing or calling me unsavory things.
Oh, but were those people though?
And I'm sitting here laughing. So.
Oh,
Hamilton.
Don't read that out loud, Elliott. Don't read that out loud.
We're talking about a specific beer beverage when someone was on. And I made the comment that you're reading. So I said, you need to drink. And I recommended something else. And he sent me a picture saying, this is not the, I went, there we go. So that's what.
Yeah. So if you're listening and you're not watching, sorry, we can't.
No, not everybody has that stuff on air, Hamilton. I got told off. Yes, you did. Don't ever go for the American stuff. We love it, the American, but no.
We love you Americans. We just don't like your beer.
So,
yeah. You guys are great.
He's making reference to.
There's a reason why Buffalo, they cross over to Canada to buy beer.
It's true. It's true. We do have some good stuff. I did, however, recommend a Belgian one. So, because
we won't go there because they don't pay for our airtime either. But
that's what we're not so. A certain somebody gets on it and flashes it around. It's like face palm. So
yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I think the phone calls are very interesting, and I do think it would muster up a whole lot of energy to do it. Have you ever gotten calls? Because again, I think it's happened to me one time from a phone number that just doesn't exist.
No, I can't say I've had anything unusual. I mean, especially in today's technology, I know spammers can clone phone numbers. There was scam going around here in Nova Scotia where the scammers had cloned an RCMP detachment phone number.
Wow.
And were scamming people out of money and things like that. So I guess in today's world, you have to be careful with stuff like that. But I do know that I had a friend tell me a story that one of their friends had passed away, and all of a sudden they were talking about her, and next thing you know, he looks at his phone and his phone is lit up, and it had dialed her phone number like in his phone. So I don't know if like maybe Siri or one of those artificial intelligence had kicked in and kind of heard the name and
Right.
then tried to dial it. But
Right.
yeah, he was very spooked because they were talking about her like in good taste, like saying that they missed her and it's unfortunate she passed away and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden his phone had tried calling her on its own.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
creepy enough when you're discussing something and all of a sudden these ads pop up all over your social media to buy it here. But I can't imagine having that conversation of a loved one or a friend that had passed. And then
Mhm.
that's terrible.
Mm.
That's Don McDonald is asking, what do you think of remote viewing and remote clearings?
I like remote viewing. I think it's very fascinating. We did exercise in one of the courses I took from the Rhine Education Center where Lloyd Auerbach set up a date and a time of when we were to do this remote viewing session. And then we had to write down anything that came to mind or visualized or anything like that. And it was interesting. I was completely way off. but, but I also don't feel, that I'm like the most sensitive person. So, but what was interesting though is that a few of my classmates and I had like almost the same description. Like I had seen like a bridge, I had seen water, I had seen a bench, and some of the other students had also picked that up. So it was really interesting that you had, let's say 10 candidates and instructor all doing the same thing at the same time, and then some of us actually picked up on the same visualizations, which was really cool. With remote clearing, I mean, the study by J.B. Rhine in 1936 showed that ESP is not limited by distance.
Right.
And so, for example, if you have a legitimate medium in California that you want to talk to, but you don't have the money to fly out to meet her, that's why there's no issues to do it over the phone. If I'm in Nova Scotia, she's in California. If she's legitimately got that talent, then distance shouldn't affect that. And the thing about clearing though that you got to remember is there's certain people that can move people forward, into the light or whatever happens in that physical realm. But it's one thing that you cannot guarantee. And I know Amelia,
Situation.
you're a medium, but like we're told as an investigator to never guarantee a client that you can get rid of their ghost because if it's a discarnate entity that has lived in that home their whole life and they love that place and they don't want to move on, they're probably not going to move on. It's the same as like the Alexander Keith brewery here in Halifax. It's known to be haunted. Alexander Keith like loved his brewery. He loved it so much he built a tunnel from his brewery to his home 2 blocks away.
Right.
And the staff there still see him walking the halls of his brewery, checking up on the work that's being done there. So, I mean, somebody like me or is going to come in and tell him to leave. Like that's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, what do you think the rights are? I can't hear you.
Sorry.
What do you think that anyone has the right to send off a human spirit that just wants to be there? I always say, it's good to try to send them off because then they can come back without all the earthly hangups if they're not stuck. If they've been moved on before and just come back, I mean, they don't have all that, all the earthly hangups that they've had before.
Yeah, it's like if they want to stay there, I think that they're gonna stay there. I don't know, like there are people that are lost. I've heard of stories like from mediums that have said that there's somebody that's lost, or especially finding sudden deaths. It happens so quickly that some people might not even realize that they're dead until things start kind of making sense to them. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because I don't think you can really force somebody to move on. You can suggest to them, or if they want help to move on, but somebody that's adamant that they're not going, I don't think that we can.
Yeah, standing their ground.
Sometimes it takes more than one conversation with them,
Mm-hmm.
And once they feel that, with human spirits anyways, once they feel and know that they are able to come back and visit their loved ones and see what's going on in their lives, and they're reassured and they feel confident in that, just like us speaking to a person who is physically here, they do choose to ascend and then come back. But with negative entities, it's a little different. It's not always.
I've actually had a conversation with Kieran O'Keefe about this when I took his possession exorcism course, because he spends a lot of time studying what he calls religious parapsychology, which is basically exorcisms and possessions and things like that. And I talked to him. I said, it's my understanding that if a father is going to do an exorcism, he has to be absolved of any sins that he's committed, so that the demons can't use that against him. And he said, I've talked to lots of exorcists, and that's what they told me as well. And I said, okay, so you're also a parapsychologist, though. So
that's the tough one.
So I said, thinking from a scientific perspective about ESP, extrasensory perception, and telepathy, I said, the father, even though he's been absolved by the church for his sin, it's still in his mind and it's still in his cognition. And so if a demon is able to access your thoughts and your mind, what is it that prevents them just from being absolved by another priest during the absolution process of the church? Makes it so that spirit cannot access that information. And he kind of paused for a minute, because you could see the wheels turning in his head from the scientific perspective. But the best answer that he could give was that possibly from a religious perspective, when you're dealing with a religious entity such as a demon, that there's different physical rules that we don't know about, or different kind of science behind that. And I mean, you can't argue that either way, because it's still a lot of things that we don't know. And
there's a lot that we don't understand,
But I did think it was interesting, though, because, like I said, if the priest, stole something, he knows that he stole something, and he knows that he went to confession and was absolved by it. So how does that, just by him being
I think any interdimensional or extraterrestrial, interdimensional, multidimensional beings, I think they could all look beyond that. I think we have to look at religion as a man-made thing. So if the person, maybe that the priest is assisting, or if the priest himself truly believes it, I think it becomes a mindset thing. And I think then any entity would.
I just find it so fascinating that, because what should happen is that if the priest did do something and was absolved for it, then he should be at peace for it, because he's brought it to the church's attention. They forgive him for it. So if the demon brings that up and says, "Hey, you stole steak from Sobeys, and you're a filthy thief," he should just say, "Yeah, I did steal something, but it doesn't bother me." You know what I mean? He's made his peace with it, and he's owned up to it. Yeah, so it shouldn't be something that totally derails the exorcism.
No,
I agree with that to a degree. If you're okay and at peace with it, of course they can't get to you.
Because the whole thought behind that is that they'll bring up stuff to discredit you and throw off the exorcism. So
I remember the first investigation that Michelle took me on. I won't talk about where or who, of course, but I remember her saying to me before we went in, "Now be careful, because if there is something here, I'm just warning you that they will throw things out there about your past." And it doesn't matter what. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Don't worry.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, if you don't want it out there, man.
Yeah. I'm like, no, I'm good.
Like you say, don't think about it. It's like, whatever.
Anything that crosses your mind will come out if you have that fear.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of the scene with Ray when he thinks about the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
That's right. I want me one of those. Okay, Sherry. So
Sherry's asking, thank you. Do you feel that with the onset of cell phones, Wi-Fi, etc., that spirits, demonics, etc.
ETs.
ET, sorry, I'm saying etc. ET, sorry, glasses,
ETs.
Sherry, forgive me, have an easier time of coming into the physical dimension. Seems like it is a paranormal pandemic unfolding. I love the way you wrote that, Sherry.
Hmm. That's certainly interesting. I mean, technology has certainly changed. The way that we investigate. I know that there's certain tools that have become helpful. For
Mm,
example, we know carbon monoxide can cause people to experience haunting characteristics. So last year, I
mhm.
purchased a gas detector for our organization to bring with us on
I've
investigations.
always used
Oh, that's
those
smart.
detectors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because there was two cases. There was one in the 1920s or 30s where a family was experiencing a haunting,
Mhm.
and they found out that the furnace was giving off excessive amounts of carbon monoxide. Once they had it fixed, the haunting disappeared. And then recently, well, I say recently, but in 2005, there was a lady taking a shower, and an apparition appeared before in the shower, so she got freaked out, obviously. Called
Mhm.
some paranormal investigators, and they found out that she just had a hot water tank recently installed that was
Ah,
improperly installed, giving off excessive amounts of carbon monoxide. Once they
that'll
had
do
that,
it.
once they had that fixed, she never saw an apparition again. So, um,
Mhm.
uh,
No, it's true. It's
uh,
true.
I'm
People
sure.
have to think about that.
I'm sure with with all the new technology, different things
Mm.
can occur for sure. Like I said, it's I know it's
Plus
making our
radio
job
waves, extra, all these waves going through, that's
all,
Mhm.
gotta
all
amp
kinds.
things up a little bit.
I know technology is making our job more difficult. So when somebody sends us a photo
Yeah.
or a video now, it's extremely difficult.
You have to question everything.
Um, before I retire from the RCMP, even the police were having trouble determining what's real, what's fake, and
Oh, wow.
It's really
The
difficult, isn't
digital
it?
technology.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and we're just starting to see these what are they called, the fake the deep fake technology coming out with the deep fake apps. Like there's a video of Tom Cruise going around
Oh,
where
Yeah.
those,
it's not
yes,
actually Tom
yes.
Cruise.
No,
All they
on
need is
an
like
airplane.
all they
Yeah.
need is like a few seconds of your voice, and then a few seconds of
Right.
audio
It
or video
That's
looks
clip.
frightening.
it looks and sounds just like him.
That's
And
frightening when you
it
think
it
about
is.
it.
It's him on an airplane, and you have to know, for those of you who watch this video, and if you're going to say with that, no, there's no way that that was faked. It was faked. First of all, the time that we are in right now, no one on that airplane has a damn mask on, and you know that that is the law
That's
right
true.
now. So you have to look at it a little bit logically and know that if we can have all these CGIs in Hollywood, imagine what you can do at home. Okay, like
Well,
that video is very difficult to, you would have to take it apart in a computer program. I couldn't believe how much it looked and sounded like him. I'm like, wait, is he doing this as a punk? And then I went, no, hold on a second. No masks,
yeah.
right?
Well, they do have some apps now where you can like superimpose your face on like movie
Yeah.
stars
That's
or
true.
whatnot. But the technology is getting better and better, and I wouldn't
Mm,
be surprised if the deep fake technology that we are seeing out there is available on a phone app
mm,
in the near future. I
mhm.
do know the governments are concerned about it because you could take a clip of Biden slamming the president of China, and next thing you know, you got a war going on.
It's true.
You would think the
That's all
president
it
of
would
China
take.
would know about all of that. But anyways, I do agree with you. Don is asking, what do you think of using dimensional being guides to help battle entities?
Um, that would be more of a question for Amelia, but
No, it's yours. It's yours.
um, I mean, I don't have any experience with that personally. Like I've never been able to communicate with a spirit or talk to a spirit guide or anything like that. But from my understanding of talking with mediums, like that they have spirit guides, and that the spirit guides help them,
Yeah.
not just give them information, but help them spiritually. So, I mean, Amelia, correct me if you're wrong, but I would assume that if you were there to try and battle like a dynamic entity, that your spirit guide would somehow be able to help you out.
That her name's Michelle. We work together. Yeah, of course you can. Well, I agree that most mediums do use guides, and there's a lot of people rely on angels or archangels, and they're interdimensional beings. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've never used any of that before for getting rid of anything.
I haven't either, but I
is
also
that something more in the last few years of work?
Yeah, I don't have the skill set for that, but I
Yeah.
have for the Exeter case, I did bring in a medium
Right.
because the family's priest that did deliverance work wasn't available,
Right.
and she was able to get rid of the entity, but yeah,
Yeah.
very limited experience in that, just because I'm not.
I
I
think a
truly
lot of
believe
Catholic
it.
priests have limited experience in that as well. Sorry.
No,
No,
I
true.
say I truly believe in just teaching people about mindset and control and working through problems that they may be experiencing in life, and just allowing them to take control. I've seen people clear their own places just by changing everything up here. It's just a much longer process because it's hard for somebody who feels that they've been living like a hostage, for example, to just all of a sudden say, "Hey, I'm the boss now." Like it is really difficult. It takes a lot of work and a lot of perseverance. Here's one
Yeah,
for you.
you have. Yes. Hi, Thomas. Thomas is a dear friend.
Hello,
I
Thomas.
respect the humility of Elliott, an expert without ego, refreshing
Aw,
and truly believable.
it is very nice.
Oh,
Get that book written, Thomas, so we can have you on.
That's right.
Wayne, hi, Wayne. Devil's advocate here, but could the spirit vision actually have been real to warn her about the water heater malfunction? Because it would be weird that the fumes would only be in the bathroom. He's got a point.
Yeah, see,
no,
there's
very,
a second half to that.
Once
Yeah.
the water heater was repaired, there was no need to have the spirit make contact anymore. That's a good point.
Yeah, no, that is really great, and I don't have I don't have access to the case file. I'm not even sure what organization investigated it, but that would be interesting to have been
Logic.
involved in that. Yeah, yeah, no, I mean that could have been a warning for sure. I mean, a
Mhm.
lot of times people report that spirits have appeared before them to give them some type of warning. Um, you know.
Mm, yeah, but I do agree. I've used carbon monoxide detectors for as long as I can remember from their primitive stages. I'm sure they're not, a little bit more elaborate now, but it is true. You people don't realize you can hallucinate, see, and hear all kinds of things.
Yeah, and like for example, like the EMF readers, the electromagnetic field radiation
Mhm.
detectors. I've used them in it was a legitimate haunted house. We had pennies materialize, and
Mhm.
one of my investigators saw an apparition. But there was also we found unshielded wires
Mm.
in the home because the home was built in the 1800s. So I mean that.
Oh,
So we told
Knob and tube.
I was
told
just going to say that.
so we told the family, because they might want to get that fixed because it could catch fire and something serious could happen. But sometimes the tools help us detect other things.
Mhm.
There was another haunted house. It didn't have anything to do with what they were seeing, but I did detect they had two older clocks that they kept in their bedroom, and they were giving off excessive amounts of EMF, like higher
That's
than what
crazy.
the FDA recommends is safe. So I just kind of let them know because they had some newer digital ones that were really nice looking, and those things were shielded very well. They weren't hitting on the. I used the GQ EMF 390. It's more expensive. I did just see one on Amazon tonight for 181. I think I paid 300 for it. But
Mm.
it's all digital. It actually there's no more going around with your notebook writing each room you're in and what the readings were because
Mhm.
it tracks it all on the
Oh, wow.
10
Nice.
got a 10
Fancy
gigabyte hard.
schmancy.
Yeah, it's got a
Yeah.
10 gigabyte hard drive. You can upload the data to your
Perfect.
computer later, and it
Right.
actually tries to tell you what the signal is, so it can detect Wi-Fi, cellular, and electrical. So,
Wow,
um,
that's excellent.
but I just kind of let the homeowners know, like you might want to replace those clocks just because they are giving off,
Because they
excessive.
sleep beside that. Can you imagine?
Well, and my colleague Dara Walsh had a case where somebody was only experiencing haunting stuff in the bedroom when they were in bed, and
Right.
it turned out it was the alarm clock that was just giving off, too much electromagnetic radiation.
Yeah. So there's a lot of logic out there that needs to be explored. I think there's a lot of really great researchers out there who bear that in mind. And then there's just a lot who are those thrill seekers, and there's a lot of little things I think that people don't think about it. Like I'll be honest, I wouldn't think of a clock radio. unless your EMF detector is right on top of it, I would not off the top of my head think that it could give off that much EMF to cause.
Oh, microwaves too.
Oh yeah,
right?
microwaves are bad. I've stood in front of
Yeah.
it with an EMF reader, and like once it's running, it gives out
Right.
a lot. That's why they tell
Oh,
you not to stand in
don't
front of
stand
them.
in front of it. Mine, I call it a popcorn maker because that's all we use it for. I'm old school. I reheat on the stove. I'm really old
Yeah.
school.
Yeah,
I don't
probably,
like
probably
too much
safer.
involved in my yeah, I'd like to eat as clean as
Glowing in the
possible.
dark.
Yeah.
So
It's bad enough I'm glowing from my wine.
I know. That's
Michelle
it.
keeps saying, you keep drinking that stuff from California, you're going to turn neon green. I'm like, yeah.
I know. It's all field
Still
injected,
drinking it.
man. So so we're talking about hauntings, but supernatural can fall under many different labels. What are you investigating? Any cryptids, or the whole vampire thing is intriguing. But what is anything fun happening out there in Nova Scotia other than the UFOs? Because Chris is like filled us in on a lot of UFO stuff.
Yeah,
Chris
no,
Dodds, for those who are wondering. Yeah.
yeah, no, we haven't had any complaints of cryptids. There have been some creatures reported here. We have been told that there's like a black panther or a black cat that's seen in the Beaverbank area.
Yeah, there's a lot of things.
There has been like a Bigfoot creature reported here
Yeah,
before by a few different
standards.
people. But nothing really crazy.
But the black cat
Recently.
thing is still, could people get kind of leery like about that? And Joe was telling us about some of those in, New Orleans. We have had sightings up here in the Niagara region where our Ministry of Natural Resources actually went out looking for them and posted a big article about it. And now to hear that there's one out in, like, the sightings out in Nova Scotia, here I could say, wow, there's been zoos.
Well, for the longest time, our natural resources department basically denied that there was bobcats out here in Nova Scotia. But there's been lots of trail cams now. That's the nice thing about technology.
Yeah.
In fact, there was one in our subdivision because the person had the camera in their backyard, and their backyard was fenced, but their dog was going nuts. And when they checked the camera, that's what it was. A bobcat had come up to the fence, and the
Oh,
dog
wow.
seen it. And then when
Wow.
the dog started barking, it took away. It kind of ran away. So
Mhm.
now they don't deny it, but yeah, there's certain, every once in a while you get a report of a strange creature, and
It's crazy out there because where you
I,
guys are located, you're sort of surrounded by, there's a lot of history up there.
there is, and I always tell people, like, I just read an article this week saying that they found a bunch of pockets of fish underneath the ice in Antarctica that they didn't know was there. But if you go to Google and type in like new creature found or whatever, and go to the
Mhm.
news section, like, we're finding new species. I wouldn't say every day, but like every year there's new species of something.
Which is great.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of things here on Earth that we don't even know
Antarctica is the
yet.
next big one, I think, isn't it? Just lost of ancient civilizations, UFO base. There's all kinds of stuff coming up, but it is interesting because they did find a freshwater lake underneath. So if you have fresh water,
hmm
like there's a lake under there. Who the heck knew?
Yeah, I mean, I find that stuff fascinating, like the zoology, and like there's even a shark. There's a certain shark that can live in both freshwater and
Yes.
saltwater, and it
Yes.
can
Mhm.
somehow like travel through like rivers and things like that.
Right
So
down the St. Lawrence.
I mean, there's all kinds of different
Yeah.
things out there. So for
Mhm.
somebody to to say like a Bigfoot, to me, I would assume that it's some sort of, and I know there's different beliefs, and some people believe they're connected to UFOs and things like that. But
Mhm.
I mean, I would assume it's some sort of almost like a humanoid, between a humanoid and a ape kind of
Mm.
creature, that we just don't know.
There's a
Don't know
lot of
about.
dense forests. There's a lot of cave systems. There's places all over the world that have never been explored, never been touched, but there is that theory too that they could be extraterrestrial, or there's a theory that we're like a zoo planet and things just keep getting have been dropped off here for like millions of years.
Yeah. Well, there's an article I just recently read, but it was from a Harvard professor that had a theory that aliens created us, and it's almost like in Men in Black at the end where the cat's got the galaxy on his collar.
Right.
And
Yes.
so, like, well, he has this like wild theory that like basically these extraterrestrial beings created our universe, and like we're kind of being watched in a lab
from the moon.
Yeah, it's wild. Like I was reading it, and I'm just like, wow, like that's a pretty wild theory.
Hamilton.
I'm amazed you're still awake, Hamilton.
I know.
It's just seriously.
It's gotta be 6 a.m.
It's 5 hours. It's 5 hours ahead.
I know.
From us.
Hamilton is a dear friend. Oh, look, we're being like smut spammed again.
He brought that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Hamilton. Hamilton and Carl Cookson are from the Lost Relic Hunters. That TV show that's on. Yeah. So I keep trying to block this one, but
keep
giving me now. I think they're outwitting me.
They're really fast.
I know. Okay, well, I'm just going to assume that it's gone, but actually I've removed them about 4 times. The brain is too alert to turn off. Wow, it sounds to me like you're either into too much of the questionable sauce that we were speaking of earlier.
That should put you to sleep.
Or you've got something amazing going on that you need to tell us about. So
I love his artwork. He paints and puts it on Facebook. You guys are free tomorrow, as of tomorrow, from what I heard. So, that should help you. Yep.
Apparently, the UK Prime Minister basically said, no more COVID. We're going back to normal. Woo!
Wow. Don't you find it funny that it's exactly, I'm going to ask a cop's mind. It's exactly a week after he was nailed for having parties during lockdown.
Oh no, I read that article today, and that's exactly what I think he's doing.
Right?
Trying to take the heat off him because
I know
there's people trying to get him to resign.
Then you guys will be locked down again in 4 weeks. Holy mother of God.
It's happening. It's happening. Hang on.
Wow.
Oh my word.
That's annoying. Hey Dave, he's here.
Hey Dave. Oh my God.
Tomorrow is the first day of Aquarius. That's what's going on. That's why you're awake, Hamilton, because it's already tomorrow there. It's already tomorrow there. So it's like that's what's going on, dear.
So okay. So UFOs. What do you have going on? UFOs, because I know you and Chris just did an interview recently.
Yeah, we talked about some historical stuff. I haven't had any recent stuff with UFOs, but we were just talking about how the RCMP used to investigate UFO sightings, and that in Canada we're very lucky because we can access those files through the National Archives. It's file number RG18, and it's got all kinds of UFO sightings from the RCMP. And how I found out about it was I was going to St. Mary's University doing my criminology degree, and I met Chris for a coffee one day downtown Halifax, and he was telling me about these UFO files that are kept at St. Mary's University because the RCMP used to send one of the professors all the reports because he had a PhD in astronomy, and so they would get him to kind of like do like a side desk kind of investigation. And report, his findings in it. So he said, where I'm a student, I should have access to it. So I went back to the library, asked to see the Burke Gaffney files because that was the name of the father that was priest and professor back then. And I think I collected about over 200 pages of UFO reports from the RCMP. And so I gave a copy to Chris. But it was really cool. Like there was a lot of people would report a UFO sighting. The police would go, sometimes multiple police officers. They all witnessed it. They'd write it down. They'd have to notify the Department of National Defense before they go off shift. If you did not notify them, there were some notes in there because some people, they're probably tired after a 12-hour shift and said, I'm just going to go home and catch some sleep and I'll come in early and I'll finish this report. Well, they got lamb-basted when they came back to work because policy was that you had to notify D&D right away of these events. They don't, the RCMP doesn't investigate them as much anymore. Obviously, if somebody calls 911 and reports a UFO sighting, they have to respond to it. But it's not like before where they actually had policy and things like that. So that's kind of what Chris and I were talking about, reminiscent about the old files, because he's found some really interesting UFO cases. I know I listened to the show that you guys did with him, and he talked about
he's been a couple times. He's fun.
Yeah, and he talked about the Lower Sackville UFO sighting, where one family, experienced a loud, noisy, crazy disturbance, and then the family next door just saw lights in the sky and didn't hear anything else. Right?
It's funny how some people can, like, you have two people side by side that are the same event is occurring, but yet not everyone is seeing it. Joe's theory on that is people who've never had experiences with ET won't see them. They're not meant to see them. Entire cities will have, there have been reports of large crafts coming in, and only a certain amount of people will actually see them.
The ones that have been chipped by them.
Well, yeah, that's apparently military, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean it's ET.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. I don't know.
Very uncomfortable.
Do you find any of the paranormal cases that you do have a mix of both entities and extraterrestrials? Because I bet you at least 50% of the stuff I've done throughout my last, couple of decades, at least half of them have also reported sightings of ETs. Greys, mostly Canadians.
I haven't had like the crossover like that. In fact, I haven't even really been contacted by too many alien abductees. I know Chris has been working with one in Nova Scotia, and I believe that they found some sort of what he called an alien artifact in her body. He didn't go as far as to say an implant, but they found a foreign object basically in her body, and they weren't sure exactly what it was, which was really interesting. I was talking to him about a couple TV show ideas or whatever, and that case had come up, so that was really interesting. But no, it's like I said, on the UFO front, it's been pretty quiet. It's funny because my interest when I created PPRI was mostly UFOs, but I find when you have like a paranormal investigative organization, a lot of people come to you about ghosts and hauntings, and so that's what I ended up specializing in. And I still love UFO sightings and things like that, but I find the close encounter of the first kind, where it's just a light in the sky. I mean, today that doesn't really hold much weight. I mean, there's so many things, like everyone owns a drone, and there's so many different things. But when you start getting into the different levels, like when there's physical contact, or scorch marks on somebody's car, or they've had an experience with an entity, I find those interesting for sure.
Yes.
In fact, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I've been seeing ads for a new documentary that they did with Bob Lazar. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
I know Bob Lazar. Yeah, I haven't.
Yes.
I haven't seen the new.
Yeah.
It's a new
I
documentary.
always find him fascinating because he's very believable. But I know back in my UFO days, when I was talked to Stanton Friedman, God rest his soul, he thought Lazar was a fake, but
some people do.
But the one interesting thing
them heavy words, Elliott.
No, it's true though. Like I find him very believable myself, and I know he was talking about, was it element 116, and this is years ago when he first started to do like the public thing, because when he first started with the public, he would shield his face, and his face would be blacked out because he was worried about his security and stuff like that. But he talked about element 116, which is now actually part of the periodical chart. So I did find that really interesting. You know what I mean? Like there's a few things that he said that are interesting. I do think it's weird that you can't find any record of him going to MIT. I mean, I know that I've worked for the government, and they're kind of sloppy, so I can't see them.
I work for them too, probably 2 different levels. so
I can't see them being able to delete absolutely everything to show that he never went there. You know what I mean? Like there's got to be somebody that would remember him going there, but I don't know. It's a interesting mystery, but I'll have to watch that new documentary. I think it's
Dolly is a contactee, abductee. experiencer.
115. I was close. I was off by
close. You were close. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I do find that world fascinating. One thing I do want to do is I want to visit Area 51, like the outskirts. So obviously, I don't want to get shot, but I've seen videos on YouTube where like people have gone to the front entrance and to the back entrance, and it's really like I just want to do that just to get a picture.
I think they've extended that even closer to the roadway, because basically what you want to do is go camping. If you think that the government can cover anything, any sighting, or keep you from seeing anything, what makes you think you'll be able to see anything at Area 51? I'd imagine that's the place where they're cloaking it all.
Well, even over the years, they keep extending, and you're right. I haven't checked out like the recent boundaries, but you know, they keep, especially after that raid Area 51 thing that was going on. You know, they just keep expanding their area, so you can't even get close to it. But there used to be a spot, I guess, you could go up to a mountaintop and almost like see into Area 51. But I know since then they've purchased all that land.
So, yeah, they watch everything now too.
Especially after the pandemic started.
Randomly showing up. Do we want to do a quick station ID before we get to the next question?
And then we'll get to Sherry's question. You are listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. And our guest tonight is Elliott Van Dusen, Dr. Elliott. We are live. We are live in the beautiful city of New Orleans on 105.3 FM radio. And we are streaming on International Public Radio, United UFO Paranormal. I don't know. Where are we? UFO Public Radio.
I don't know.
I just really UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials Radio. I get that one, but we're never on it.
No, it's true.
Now I'm like that.
Tongue-tied. You're tongue-tied.
Yes, I am tongue-tied. Our sponsors are great, amazing sponsors. Folgers Coffee have been with us.
Is that Hamilton? What is it?
Hamilton.
What
is this?
It's gone quiet.
It isn't Moose. This is great coffee. And don't forget what I said about the instant coffee. You can make dessert with that. It comes out amazing. So we want to say thank you to Folgers for sponsoring us from the beginning. And we hope that we have a long relationship with you. And we appreciate all that you do for us. Honestly, we couldn't do this without you. Thank you. And we'd like to thank, Folgers. Yes, Hamilton. We'd like to thank Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, Justin Snicker, for our intro and outro, which was composed by him. He is an award-winning composer, and you can find his music on Amazon and Bandcamp. And you can also find him on social media, Facebook and Instagram. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you. All right, Sherry, here we go.
Sherry Elliott, what do you think about Skinwalker Ranch?
Skinwalker Ranch. You know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I've heard of it. I have not seen any of the documentaries or anything.
Neither have I.
That's a big one in the paranormal. I'm like amazed.
Nope, I honestly haven't. But you know what? I'm actually embarrassed to say too, but I just recently found out about the skull experiment from over in the UK.
What?
And
are you serious?
I'm serious.
How are you living in England and you don't know about skull?
That's like Paranormal 101, man. Especially parapsychology.
I know. I know. That's the thing. I've been studying this for like 20-25 years, and I just recently found out about the skull experiment. Watch a documentary, and wow,
mind blown, right?
Yeah, like a lot of really cool stuff. The one thing that stands out about the documentary was the guy in Italy that could communicate with spirits through the radio, and they actually took out the radio transmitter, thinking that it might be interference or a fraud or something like that. But they actually took the transmitter out of the radio, and voices were still coming through the radio. That's, to me, that's just like amazing. I know.
It defies everything.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it was such an amazing group of people. The concept, like everything was just so incredible. It's just, and even parapsychology is kind of like going, okay, we almost have to give it to them.
Well, it's interesting because I don't trust things on TV, and rightfully so, because Daryl and I we were looking at doing a television show, about investigating old cases, so like Enfield poltergeist, but using new technology and science that exists today to kind of re-examine old cases. And we were told by a network
I
that
love it.
they're not interested in science. They think parapsychologists are just debunkers, and
right now.
they want scary shit. That's like every 3 minutes they want a scary hit.
Tell me about it. The whole world thinks I run around screaming demon all the time, yet I'm the most logical person I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just like, I can't even believe it. So like basically they give us a list of what they want, and I told the producer that we've been working with, I said, this is impossible to produce unless we either A, fake it, or B, you reapply as a drama TV series, because you know what they want is just not realistic.
Maybe you need a different producer, you know, if you're working with the right producers.
They have a formula. That's the problem. And the formula is outdated. And I shouldn't say that because I've worked with a lot of producers, but the formula is outdated and it's always the same thing. And then all of a sudden it changes, and then it'll be like that for about 3 years. And then it's just,
well, right now,
afraid to get
demons
into
are
anything
sexy.
new.
Yeah, like right now, demons are sexy on TV. Like everyone wants things to
For
be.
the last
Well,
10,
yeah, and then
15
you've got the
years.
series Lucifer, and you've got all these
It's everything.
all these things right now on streaming. It's just
just
unbelievable. I don't watch any of it though.
But it's the paranormal. That's what it is. It's, you know, trying to say, like I said, I always say, you know, I'll give you 5 answers that are logical and probable, but could it be the D word? Maybe. Say it.
I loved paranormal television like 10 years ago.
The original shows.
Yeah, like when Michelle did, you know, Paranormal Survivor, A Haunting. Those ones are those are the programs that I love. I do too.
But as soon as
I don't like the investigations.
Experts, which don't exist.
Yeah.
In that field, right? That's when it changes. And I feel sometimes it takes away from the credibility of, I'll never film again, but it takes away from the credibility of the stories.
No, it's definitely like, you know, television has turned me off for sure, just because I even saw a documentary when Stanton Friedman was alive, and it was this really cheesy alien abduction documentary, but they had like experts like Stanton Friedman and a few other different experts on there, like kind of talking about the video clips that these people had recorded and making it sound real. So anyway, I reached out to Stanton. I'm like, what is the story with this McPherson case? And he's like, oh my Lord. He's like, so basically this production company came to them, got them to talk about different UFO alien abduction stories and things like that. Then they spliced everything together on this like Blair Witch type alien abduction video that was allegedly filmed. And then they kind of pieced it all together. So
that's me.
So I really don't trust it. So even with the skull experiment, after I saw it and saw how much, like, you know, evidence was in there, I actually went to the SPR's website and started seeing what they say about it. And you know, so they did have some infighting because there were some parapsychologists that weren't invited there, and there was some that were. So there was a little bit of infighting, but for the most part, the SPR backs up that documentary. So
I think that they look at parapsychologists as just, like the naysayers. Realistically speaking, though, whereas in 100 years, I don't think anybody in parapsychology, from what I've studied, has actually come out with something really definitive either. So I think everybody in the field sort of like going, well, we're all still trying to figure it out. You know, like there is nothing. That's just the point, is there is nothing definitive.
No,
going one way or the other way.
There's always more questions in parapsychology than there is answers, because
it's true.
You know, there's certain things we don't know, like anesthesiologists don't actually understand anesthesia. They know that it can put you to sleep, and you don't feel pain, but they actually don't understand how it works.
No,
and it's the same with parapsychology. Like we just, you know, we don't know what happens to the body, you know, once we die, like the consciousness of that.
Scientists are now saying that it goes on, right? That's the new thing. Like, science, not necessarily parapsychologists, but science is like, yes, it goes on. The essence does go on. I guess they've done experimenting. So at least we're getting that far.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's only taken how long, but
over 200 years. But
yes. So we've got a little notch in the belt. We're getting there. So, it goes on. But where does it go on? So there we go.
I just read Robin's comment.
Oh, and
Enjoying the show. That poster is unsettling. I'm so sorry,
you're welcome. Okay, Sherry. Sorry, here we go.
Sherry is asking, Elliott, what do you think of inexperienced investigators that bolt when faced with the real deal? I had 6 teams bolt, literally ran down the driveway and took off.
Oh, I'd love to go to that place then.
They did you a favor because they would have botched it.
No, it's funny. I talked about this on another podcast, and the podcaster host was a correctional officer.
Right.
And we talked about that. So, like in law enforcement, you're trained to like run towards danger, run towards an attack, like put yourself in like extremely risky life or death situations. But it's funny because when it comes to the paranormal, you've got paranormal investigators that, similar to police officers, get called to a place or a location. But when they're confronted with, something like that, a lot of people do back out and run away. It's interesting. I don't know if it's because like law enforcement, you have use of force training and things like that, so you feel like maybe a little bit more confident. Plus, there is muscle memory with some of your actions, like your self-defense and your firearms and things like that. That's been proven to be, muscle memory. But I do find it interesting that paranormal investigators, instead of running towards it, they do seem to run away from it. Now, just recently in October, we held an event at the Westin Nova Scotia Hotel in Halifax, which is a 4-star hotel, extremely haunted. Although we couldn't find any stories about it, we always heard rumors that it was haunted. But it wasn't until we started doing some advertising for our event that some of the workers that used to work there started to approach Daryl and I with some stories. And while we were there, one of the stories was on the second floor, which is all their conference rooms. A lot of the staff have seen a little boy wandering around the hall, sometimes dribbling a basketball. And sometimes they don't see him, but they can hear the basketball dribbling. So while I was giving a lecture on hauntings, Daryl walked out of our conference room and went down to the Atlantic room, which is where this little boy has been seen. And Daryl walked into the room, and he was only in there for a couple of seconds. And when he turned to the left, he saw what he thought was a little girl dive underneath the table. But he said the little girl was like semi-translucent. And when she dove under the table, the actual tablecloth didn't move, but there was almost like a semi-translucent tablecloth that did move. And it really freaked him out because he's been studying parapsychology for like 40 years, has never seen an apparition before. So once he composed himself, he went over to the table, lifted it up. There was nothing there, took a couple photographs and things like that, and then came back to the room to tell us kind of what happened. But it was kind of interesting because it did rattle him. He didn't run out of the room, but for like a week or two afterwards, like he was completely rattled because he's more critical, skeptical. So for him to have seen something like that, it really, really rattled him to the core.
Oh yeah, it would shake you
I
right
can
up.
imagine.
Your first experience, you never forget that.
No, like he actually was retelling the story over Christmas to one of a girlfriend his or whatever, and started crying, like telling the experience. Like that's how much it affected him. And he's a professional parapsychologist that's been doing it for over 40 years. So, I don't know.
It's a tough one.
I haven't seen an apparition myself. I've experienced haunting characteristics. I've had footsteps approach me. I've seen doors open and close on their own. I've seen a doorknob turn while I was in a room and open the door and there's nobody on the other side. But I didn't flee. I don't know. It's I got more.
Apparitions are hard.
The apparition might be different. I mean, unless some people say they're not translucent. Some people that see them say that they look as real. I've
had solid ones where I thought for sure I was talking to an actual person. Then your spidey senses tick it, and you're just like, I'm gonna poke him. This is a little friendly poke and just see if he's real.
One of the first stories
you could do is get upset,
One of the first stories I heard about the Westin was from our dog groomer, and she used to work there when she was a late teenager. And she said one night, so I guess the employees used to be able to rent the hotel rooms for really cheap. So she got her parents a hotel room for the night. and they hung out downtown Halifax, and then they went back to the room, ordered room service. And because she worked there, she thought, oh, I'll run the dishes down to the kitchen and kind of save them some work. And so she took the service elevator, but when she opened the service elevator, there was a man standing in there with 3/4 length black trench coat, had a black fedora. He was looking down so she couldn't see his eyes.
Oh.
She's like, oh God, like, who's this guy? Should I get on this elevator? You know, she was a young, attractive 18, 19-year-old girl.
Yeah.
She was nervous. So she said, you know, she's from Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. So she's extremely friendly. So she's like, hi, how's your evening going? And not a word from him, didn't even look up.
Yeah.
So she made the decision, even though her gut told her not to get on the elevator, got on the elevator, hit the kitchen floor, elevator comes down, door opens up, she steps off, turns around to say goodnight to the guy, gone. But he was as real as you or I were. He wasn't translucent or anything like that. And the only way that it had to be a ghost, because he wasn't pulling a Bruce Willis going up the shaft while she's
right,
you know, going down a couple floors. I mean, it had to be an apparition. So
for those of you non-fans, Die Hard.
That's right. That's right.
He's referencing. I'm the pulp culture queen, so I'm just saying.
Hey,
Hi,
speaking of Brian. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Another question for you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Dave Petrella asks, hi, Elliott. The thoughts on Oak Island. Have you been? What is your feeling on the energy there? That's a good question. We've never asked you.
Yeah, no, you know, you haven't. Yeah, Oak Island's only about 35 minutes from where I live. So I've been there a few times. Before, you could not even go on the island. That's before the TV show. It was always blocked off. And then now with the TV show, if they're not filming, they'll let you go onto the island, but you basically can only go to like a little tourist thing that they set up. And it is kind of cool. It's like a unofficial museum, and they've got all the different artifacts that they found. Like there's a couple of coins and some like spearheads and things like that set up there. It's really, really cool, but they're still really strict on access to the island, especially like I said, when they're filming, they won't even let you go on the island. But it's I didn't get like a bad vibe on the island. I get like a really like excited feeling. Like it's kind of cool. It's exciting. It'd be neat to like.
It's not all heavy because it's being so disturbed or disrupted. Like
no, not at all.
The native energy, like our indigenous community up there, you know, everything they're finding that they're not allowed to touch. You would think that that would be almost taboo, because that's land that they don't want disturbed.
Yeah, and they've been digging that for years. I mean, they do find like interesting things, like they have found coins and things like that, but they haven't found the big treasure.
That they told us.
Are we ever gonna find that treasure? Jesus, how many seasons in are we? I'm getting frustrated.
I have never watched an episode beginning to end. I've only caught clips of it. I think I'm the only person that hasn't seen it in this field. I don't know.
I just have Wayne going blah 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 blah. And 2 seasons later, blah 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 blah. He looks at me. I'm like, all right, you were right.
Yeah, I've seen like the sporadic episodes, but there was one cool episode where they brought in divers that are trained to work in like confined spaces, and they tried to send them down to like one of the areas that flooded, but it's so dark and dingy down there, you couldn't really see anything.
You should watch. Sorry, you should watch season 1 to 9 and write down how many things they've found in 9 seasons.
It's not the treasure, I can assure you of that, because I've watched it.
That's a lot of TV time. Wow.
It is. Really getting to that point. You think you're getting close, you're getting excited.
That's a lot of sponsors.
Next week. Oh, come on. So, yeah. But, yeah.
Oh.
Okay, put that one back.
Yeah, Brian's asking, Elliott, have you ever checked out the 5 Fishermen restaurant in Halley?
Oh, yes. I love that place. Awesome seafood restaurant if you like seafood. It's probably one of the best restaurants in Halifax.
Can you explain, for those who don't know about it, what the attraction is there that would bring you there, aside from the food?
Well, it does have a history, which I'll go into in a sec, but it's one of the more popular, expensive restaurants in Halifax.
Right.
Very beautiful inside. They've renovated lots of times, but it has kind of a dark history. It used to be a funeral home, and it has housed bodies from both the Halifax explosion and from the Titanic. So it does have a lot of history.
Right.
I've always heard that if a male goes to the male bathroom, which is kind of like on the second floor of the restaurant, and you kind of have to go like up a stairwell, that a lot of people report being grabbed or attacked by something. But while I was eating there one time, I always throw it out to the waiters or waitresses that are working there, and I asked if they had any experiences. And the guy that was serving me a couple years ago said that he hadn't, but he pointed to the bartender and said that his friend did. And he said one night his friend, like, the restaurant was closed, he was near where their offices are, he was walking down the hallway, and all of a sudden he could hear metal hit the floor behind him. And when he turned around, there was like an old-fashioned skeleton key that he found just laying on the floor, almost like, it sounds like, based on the description, now this is third hand because I didn't talk to the bartender, I talked to his friend, but it almost sounded like it materialized out of nowhere. There. So it's a lot of people have reported, though, the activity is near the men's bathroom. I usually try and go there a couple times while I'm there, but I've never had anything happen to me. But
no. Let's go. We'll be right back. Let's go hang out in the can for a while.
I did that at Alberfoyle Mill. I used the bathroom, and I thought I was having a conversation with my friend, and she was outside in the hallway talking to someone who works there. I'm like,
oops,
but yeah, it happens. Just accidental things. Never. I don't look for it. I didn't even know it was haunted till I came out. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. There's a lot of like restaurant bathroom type ghost stories, but there's another place for any of you listeners from Rhode Island, the Tavern on Main restaurant that's there, and they actually promote it being haunted. They sell t-shirts and things like that. But there is a story there's two stories with that place. Actually, there was a lady murdered on the site. Apparently her husband was a police officer at the time and had gone in a fit of rage and killed her at the bar. But there's also been reports of a little boy found in the girls' washroom looking for his mother.
Aww.
Yeah.
It's hard with children's spirits.
Yeah. So
as
like
a parent.
some mediums that have been there have like picked up on that energy. But again, it's related to the bathroom. Like it's interesting.
Why do you think? Like, what is it with the bathrooms?
I don't know. Because I don't know the history of the building of Tavern on Main. It almost looked like it may have been like a hotel or something, like almost like a saloon at some point. So God knows what went on there.
Water. Okay, but seriously, water runs through the entire building. Because Brian and Dave were both saying water. Yes, the water for sure. But I mean, that's why a lot of them go down to the basements as well. But I mean, you have water coming through the kitchen. You have water that just runs under the house. I mean, I know here in Ontario and probably good chunks of Canada, there's freaking water everywhere underneath.
The Powerhouse restaurant sitting right on water. Alberfoyle, where I was, is a mill, and we were in the basement, which the basement was still gravel. That's how old this place is, and it was a business dinner. It was a business dinner. I was not expecting anything. And the original mill is glass cased off, and you're sitting right next to this running water.
Oh,
and
wow.
You know you're on it, and it's like it didn't click with me until, like I said, I started walking around, but I was so uneasy.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting, the water, because I always had a theory, although other people have reported different coins have appeared too. A lot of people said dimes appear and things like that.
Yes.
But I always thinking that one of the reasons why in certain haunted places pennies materialize is because they were made with copper, and that's why we don't use them anymore, because they were worth more than 1 cent.
Yes.
But I always had a theory that maybe the pennies are appearing because the ghosts are able to manipulate it, because copper's an electrical conductor. Maybe
but it's a grounder too.
It is a grounder as well, yeah. But maybe it's the same theory with the water too. Like water can be a conductor as well for energy. So
I know in this house when we were filming, there was a show filming here, and they were dropping dimes and nickels coming right out of the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
That's never happened before. We were like, did that seriously just happen in our house?
Yeah, Canada hasn't had a penny in a few years. And it's funny how everybody that you that tells you their story of, oh, is this a sign from my loved one, is saying, I saw a nickel, I saw a dime. And I'm like, that's hilarious. Even the other side knows we don't have pennies. Yeah.
Silver dollar.
Yeah, it's funny. At the house, I remember them joking around about the pennies appearing because they're like, why can't they be dropping $5 bills?
I know. Just leaving, I've done cases where they've left coins like in people's shoes, but they end up being really old coins.
Yeah, there's been some really interesting cases. We actually have in Nova Scotia, we've had 3 big poltergeist cases. One is obviously the Esther Cox Amherst mystery.
Yes.
The other one is the fire spook of Caledonia Mills. And a lesser known one was there was a poltergeist in Windsor, and the American Society for Psychical Research had sent an investigator up to investigate it, which they thought was fraud because they caught a couple of the girls throwing items when they thought the investigators weren't looking. But almost like the Enfield poltergeist, where the girls were, they were playing a bit of tricks, but then there was some other stuff that was unexplained, like the police officers
going on.
Yeah, like the 2 police officers that attended and saw furniture being moved on their own accord and things like that. So I don't think like just because you catch one aspect of fraud happening that you toss the whole thing out. But in the Windsor poltergeist case, it was interesting because there was like coins, foreign coins, like from over in Europe appearing, like just materializing. So it's really interesting.
Isn't it crazy? It's like, what is it, a portal? Yeah, here wasn't exciting, and this is an old house,
Well,
I thought, like, give us some like good coins, but it's all modern stuff, and honestly, it was just dropping out. People were just the people filming were like,
well, look at the items that were materializing during the skull experiment too. They had flowers. They had They had like like different like cufflinks. Like they had all kinds of different things showing up.
No, that was unbelievable. I've known a couple of people throughout, like, my 20 years of doing this or so, that have tried to do their own version of the skull experiment.
Any luck?
I don't think they had any luck. They didn't follow up if they did, because I know at one point I said, you know what, if you can get someplace with this, like, we would love to bring you on to the show, because that would be such a, I would love to, I would even like host something here and do it live, because the house is really haunted. And I think it would be an interesting thing to try.
Oh, definitely. Like in Canada, there was the Philip experiment that was done in Toronto.
That was so crazy. That was crazy.
Yeah. So in the, the Toronto had Society for Psychical Research, which I found out by talking to the Society for Psychical Research that they weren't actually together. So this group in Canada just called themselves Toronto Society for Psychical Research, but they basically wanted to create this fictional character named Philip, and they gave him a backstory and
like Slender Man.
Basically created like their own. Their own poltergeist, basically. Yeah. And they sent the wraps off to be analyzed, and the acoustics from the wraps were different than a normal wrap on the table. Wow. And it's the same with the knocks from Enfield as well. They analyzed those, and they were different as well,
right,
compared to normal knocks. So it's really interesting. They didn't go as far as getting stuff, materialized.
Yeah.
But it still goes to show you that when you get a group of people together, like the skull experiment or like the Toronto SPR,
it is fascinating. I mean, to have true poltergeist case, you look at the ancient Ram Inn, in the UK, and of course, talking to Bill Bungay, who owns like the Black Monk House, which has been renamed in UK. We have a standing invitation to go there. I'm like, come on, COVID. Just
I know, right?
Just like, I want to go to this Black Monk House. But I mean, no one's been able to debunk that place for this poltergeist activity. Apparently it's just like through the roof. He bought this place because he's a film producer, and he just expected, like, being very skeptical. He expected like nothing, and he was just like,
He stayed there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. He said, like, I can't even come up with something to debunk it.
Is there any place, like, once kind of COVID settles down, that you guys are planning on going to? Or
I would do the Black Monk House. That would be a good one. I want to get back to Europe. I love going out there. So, we're actually looking to buy a house at one point before this.
Wow.
We need to take a stroll through Scotland.
I love Scotland.
Yeah, a little stroll.
I love Scotland.
Just a little stroll.
Yeah, I'd love to get over there myself, and
it's beautiful.
I've never been over there, but I mean, they have such a haunted history as well. I mean, there's inns and hotels and taverns and
whenever I travel, I try to stay in someplace haunted. I did when I was in Scotland on my last trip, and then down into the south of France, and it was the same. It's always exciting when you're just laying there and you see somebody walking around, like, because you could see under the door. Someone's walking, open the door. You're all excited. It's like nobody's there. It's like, close it, do it again. It's a lot of fun.
I made a
mistake. Much to amuse me.
I made a mistake once. After Sarah and I had met, we decided that was enough. So I wanted to get a vasectomy, but they did like a no needle, no scalpel vasectomy in New Brunswick. So we had to travel from Nova Scotia to New Brunswick. So I booked an Airbnb, and this was like a home that was built in the 1800s. It had like the historical plaque on it. And so I messaged the owners, like me being me, and I'm just like, hey, like coming to stay at your place, like just wondering if anything like strange has happened there or whatever. And they wrote back like, well, what do you mean strange? So I explained.
Yeah, want to elaborate?
Yeah, I explained to them, paranormal investigator and this and that. Oh my Lord, they went up one side, me down the other. They said, no, nothing strange has ever happened there. None of our guests have ever reported anything there.
Didn't want to talk about it.
They're like, we don't want any of that brought here. And I'm like, okay. I was like just asking. And Sarah's like, Elliott, you're gonna get us kicked out. We're not even there yet. And then
at least meet the people first, Elliott.
And then I've never had this happen, like, because I don't stay at too many Airbnbs, but like the guy showed up about a half hour after we checked in. So I think he was like coming to make sure like I didn't have like a Ouija board out.
Oh, this is true. You're gonna stir shit up.
But the place was really cool. Like it had a games room and like a pool table in it. And it was like a really nice. The floor was original, and but we slept there and like nothing happened that night. But
I hate that when you have all these maybe that's the problem. It's having those high expectations because you hear all these stories. And I'll specifically go stay someplace, like when I was in Romania, I'm thinking, oh, this is it. We got a million freaking recordings. The Haunted Forest did not disappoint. I'll say that was phenomenal experiences. The hotel after, phenomenal experiences. But I'm in some of the most haunted places. I'm thinking, okay, I'm staying in a little place not far from Bran Castle. This is really exciting. And I had, nothing. And then another morning, it's just that something's right in my ear going, Michelle. It's like that, like right in my ear. I jumped out of bed, startled me. I thought it was, my girlfriend, Melissa. And I look at her, and you can't wake her up. A train can't wake that girl up. And I'm looking at her, so I'm all foul because it was like 6:30 in the morning. It's like
we're not morning people.
Oh, no.
You needed your Folgers, Michelle.
I needed my freaking Folgers. Exactly. Yes. I couldn't find the Folgers out there to save my own life. So just like, who dares interrupt my slumber, Yeah. But yeah, so I have full on attitude and realized, holy shit, I just had a pretty interesting experience. But I think we go in there with such high expectations. Maybe it's that high expectation that, they're like, oh, no element of surprise here. So we're just going to give you nothing.
Yeah. And there have been studies done too, where if people are primed about a location that they, there's been multiple different results. Sometimes, you're more apt to experience something. Other times you're actually not.
Right.
But they have done lots of studies where it shows people that are believers in the paranormal tend to have more experiences than non-believers, which is interesting.
Well, maybe it's because we're more open-minded.
Possibly. Oh, we're definitely more open-minded, though, for sure.
Maybe it's like, where that non-believer is going to say, oh, the house is settling. Whereas a paranormal person could say, hell no, that was this, or this. Meanwhile, it was a house that was
a paranormal person. If they see something or suspect something's moving, a paranormal person will mark a glass on a counter or a table.
With the camera phone out.
Yeah. Take it precise, measure it from the edge and everything, and then come back a few hours later and go,
yeah,
right. That's the difference. And someone who's not into it will be like, Yeah, I don't even like.
'Cause they
I don't
don't
remember where I
care.
put it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's true. That's
And
true.
and those
Yeah.
are usually, I don't know, I find the people who don't care are the ones that get the best stuff.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No,
then they
that's
just kinda
true.
go, "It was nothing."
They have the best experiences. Look at
They
your friend,
they
full
do.
full body apparition and an
I
elevator.
know. Well, that's what I told him. I said I would have
Yeah.
loved to have witnessed that, and
Yeah.
but wasn't meant for me. So
I know,
That's rare though.
it
Full
is.
body is rare. That's a
Oh,
gift.
not
mm,
a lot of people, throughout, I think people I've met throughout working in this field, and they're just like, it's always a
You
husband
know,
too. The wife's just like, "Oh, I just dragged him along here and blah, blah, blah," and the husband's like, meanwhile, the husband's having these phenomenal experiences. I remember doing a ghost tour at one time. I was hosting, and I see this man just standing there, frozen in fear, and I'm like, the wife's like, I don't know. He's been gone for about 10 minutes. I'm like, oh, I'll go find him, whatever, right? And
yeah.
he's standing there with his arm out, and he's frozen in fear. And I'm like, you okay? And all I got was this dire, something has my hand. I'm just like, how do you feel about that? It's okay. Meanwhile, and the story of the area was there was a little child spirit, and she would go around and she would grab adults' hands
Mm,
or hold on to their shirt, and I'm like,
sweet
and he goes,
actually.
I don't know what to do. I'm just like, just pull it back. He snatches it and checks to make sure all his digits are there. And I'm just like,
That
it's
is hilarious.
extremely extreme. But I'm just like, okay, I promise you, your hand is still attached. Your fingers all still work. Wiggle them around. But if he was just like, he just looked and he goes, because my wife bugs me to come to these sort of things all the time, because I never in my life have had experience. And he goes, those are cold little fingers that just had his fingers bunched up. And he goes, and it was amazing experience. But
that's
again,
really cool.
yeah, he comes in with the attitude of, I don't believe it. I want nothing to do with it.
Changed him.
I'm just here to humor my wife because she bothers me to do this stuff all the time. And it's
Mhm.
usually how it happens.
Well, it was fun. It was funny you mentioned that too at our event. There was a lot of couples that came, and so we asked. Daryl and I just asked why people had come to the event or whatever. All the guys, every single guy there said that it's because their wife dragged them to it.
It's always, that's the same thing though. That's what I mean. My wife
Yeah.
just bothers me, harasses me into coming. So here I am. It's like,
Yeah.
well, thanks for gracing us with your presence. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah,
but the best stuff happens to these guys. But,
yeah. It's true.
I think they have great visuals because the spirits have to try even harder because they're not as sensitive. So they really have to manifest something where someone who's sensitive will catch that shimmery and know what it is. So sometimes I wonder if it's got anything to do with that.
I don't know, shimmery things could, in my experience, I've had shimmery things and they're usually extraterrestrials.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like a faint apparition or a partial apparition is very common for mediums over. And then you see people who are, they're probably in tune and like everyone is, but they don't use it. And then all of a sudden they get the full body apparitions. It's like, what the hell, right? But they would have to manifest and work so much harder to get that, and probably takes longer. So that could be why they're getting the full one, because they're like, hey, you don't see me, where mediums will see that faint and start communicating, and they don't have to keep working at it. I don't know. It's a thought.
Well, it's definitely a puzzle we'd like to solve. Is why do some show up as partial? Why do some show up as full apparitions? Why are some translucent? Why are some like a lot of people have seen a full body?
I've seen them all. Like I'm very fortunate that way, but
it takes a lot of energy to manifest. Maybe it comes down to something as simple as that's all the energy they have to muster up.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I believe too. Like in my heart, I think it takes a significant amount of energy to materialize like that, or to control. Like that's what I found about the Exeter house. It would go through periods of quietness, and it's almost like the entity there was like trying to recharge itself because it had used all this energy to like manipulate children's toys and turn fire alarms on and off, and open doors and things like that. There's just so much that we don't fully know yet.
Exeter is a portal. Just
Exeter has a lot of stuff. I noticed Dave asked about Sherbrooke, Nova Scotia, but there is Daryl and I have been kind of looking into. It's almost like the Massachusetts Bridgewater Triangle, but there's almost like a triangle of paranormal activity up around the Sherbrooke,
there is.
New Glasgow, Antigonish area. So once we get our paranormal case map live on the website, it'll be interesting to plug in people's stories and experiences there and see kind of what shows up on the data.
That would be one that I'd really be interested in following along, because that is an active area, but there is a triangle said to be up there, and there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of reports up there. You know, things going missing, UFOs being seen.
UFOs. There's been like I said, I think the Bigfoot sighting was up there. Caledonia Mills, where the fire spook was, would have fell in there. So
in there too. That's nuts though. But so it's that time again. So this is a part of the show, of course, where it's always sad because we're always having a good time when you come on, but you get to promote yourself and what you have coming up, and what you're planning on doing, and just promote. How can people find you, and how can they find your books?
The best way to find me is just our website. It's Paranormal Phenomena Research and Investigation. So it's ppri.net.
Right.
It's got our contact form. It's got my biography. It's got a store section which leads you to links to my books. You can also get my books on Amazon, Chapter's website, and Barnes and Noble. If you're in the States, you can get it through their website as well. Don't really have any like projects on the go per se, just a couple of investigations that we're working on.
And how can people reach you if they have a story they want to share, if they need your assistance or your expertise?
You can either go to ppri.net and go to the contact us section, or my email is Van Dusen, VanDusen @ppri.net. You can send me an email, or if Van Dusen is too long, just type in info @ppri.net, and it will come to our organization. The message will get filtered to me. The books, I spend more money on PPRI than I do selling books. So any book sales I get, the money probably is just going to go back into PPRI anyway. We always buy new equipments, or we like this investigation coming up, for example, we have to travel and things like that. So there's always expenses involved in the investigation.
Of course. Yeah.
That's always to a good cause.
For sure.
Thank you for coming back on. It was a lot of fun, and really anxious to see what you guys have coming up, and keep in touch over the course of the year.
Yeah, and, once Spencer has the paranormal case map live, I'll let you guys know.
Okay, that would be great. That would be great. So thank you.
Oh, no problem.
For the book, love it.
Care.
No problem.
Making sure everybody can see this.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thank you, Elliott.
All right, guys. Take care.
Hey,
you
good
too.
night.
Good night.
All right. Good night.
Yeah, it's midnight for him.
Well, we have come to the end of another fantastic segment here on the Outer Realm. Big thank you to Elliott Van Dusen. He's always a lot of fun. It was such a pleasure to have him on. And thank you to everybody who tuned into the chat room. Hamilton, thank you for staying up way past your bedtime to join us as well. Always a breath of fresh air. And big thank you to Folgers Coffee for sponsoring us. You have no idea how much we love you guys. Big thank you also, Dr. Snick, a.k.a. Justin Snicker, for your music, your voice, for the intro and outro. Please remember to stop by International Public Radio on YouTube, UFO Paranormal, UFO Gods, and Extraterrestrials, and subscribe. It's the only way you're going to be able to catch all of the shows, our shows, and a lot of other great shows. There's always something playing on there. So check them out. Don't forget about us on the Outer Realm on Facebook. Give us a like and follow us along. If you want to contact us, please, the only thing that we respond to is the email, just because, I know myself, I've got several group pages that I'm on, and it's just overwhelming. So contact us at the outerrealmcontact@gmail.com. Again, the outerrealmcontact@gmail.com. Now, tomorrow night, guys, marks our 200th episode.
Wow. Right.
And we could not think of a better way to celebrate than to do a Q&A sort of show, just so we can interact with you guys. You know, we always have so much fun with you guys. You can kind of determine which way we're going to go, but everybody's in chat, and it's just a lot of joking around. It's a lot of answering questions and telling stories and sharing of experiences. And we thought that would be a whole lot of fun. So I hope you can all tune in for that, because special just for you guys. Yes. So until then, thank you for tuning in, everybody, and good night.
You have been listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano, airing live every Wednesday and Thursday evening, 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 to 10 p.m. Central, on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.